Hello everyone, this is Michele Tittler from the political organization End Race-Based Law in Canada, and this is my political partner, Gerry Gagnon.
Happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day, it's July 1st, 2024, and today's episode is about the petition to end race-based law. Gerry is going to read it, and we're going to show it to you, and I'll scroll along with him, and he's going to explain it to you. And after it's done, I'll tell you how you can help get the petition signed across Canada. There'll be more about that in the future. For now, if you want to contact me, I'm at michelleforcanada@gmail.com and at endracebasedlawpetition@gmail.com, both of us. So let's get started with the petition.
Those of you who have followed us, we've been around for a number of years now, are probably familiar with the petition. It was drafted some time ago in response to people wanting to know what could be done about these issues we're talking about, not just whether they agreed with them or not, but supposing they did, what could be done. And that prompted us to research the legal and constitutional steps that would be necessary to, quote, end race-based law in Canada, unquote. Petition to the House of Commons. We, the undersigned citizens of Canada, draw the attention of the Government of Canada to the following. That whereas the Indian Act and Section 91, subsection 24 of the Constitution Act 1867 have divided Canadians by race and heritage, have perpetuated the unequal treatment of Canadian Aboriginals, providing the legal framework for segregation via the reserve system, have prevented reserve Aboriginals from equal provincial educational access, have prevented reserve Aboriginals from having the full legal, economic, and property rights and opportunities of other Canadian citizens. And whereas the inclusion of sections 35 and 25 in the Constitution Act 1982 have further divided Canadians by race and heritage, have disrupted legal, commercial, and exploration activities, have introduced legal uncertainty into property ownership, have left some Canadians without proper police protection, as in Caledonia, Ontario, and have left most Canadians with diminished rights with every expansion of Indigenous rights based on Section 35. And whereas the inclusion of, quote, with particular attention to the circumstances of Aboriginal offenders, unquote, in Section 718.2, subsection E of the Criminal Code, has resulted in a two-tiered system of justice wherein Canadians receive different legal outcomes depending on their race or ethnic heritage. And whereas the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples contains provisions that are fundamentally incompatible with Canada's constitutional framework, therefore, your petitioners call upon the Government of Canada to take the following actions. The passage of the repeal of the Indian Act. Now, the Indian Act, a lot of people believe is part of the treaties themselves. It is not. It's a result of the initial treaties. Once reserves, segregated reserves were created that were now under separate law from the rest of Canada, they needed a code of laws to administer the reserves. This is known as the Indian Act. It has been amended many times in the past and can simply be repealed by Parliament without any constitutional changes necessary. Back to the petition. The passage of the removal of, quote, with particular attention to the circumstances of Aboriginal offenders in Section 718.2, subsection E of the Criminal Code. This, of course, is what is known as the Gladue Law, after a famous Supreme Court ruling, or a court case. The Supreme Court ruled in this direction and Parliament has laws in this direction. And of course, it's created a separate sentencing process for Aboriginals from the rest of Canadians. Back to the petition. The removal of Canada's signature from the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. This one doesn't really require much comment. It's in the news all the time now. The Canadian government and the British Columbia government are trying to actually change our laws to comply with this international document. Canada can simply remove its signature at any point. It initially did not sign this document along with Australia and the United States. And former Prime Minister Harper has yet to explain why they reversed themselves on this. Back to our petition. The calling of a constitutional conference pursuant to Section 35.1 of the Constitution Amendment Proclamation 1983, leading to the repeal of Sections 35 and 25 of the Constitution Act 1982 and Section 91, subsection 24 of the Constitution Act 1867. This is necessary because after the 1982 Constitution and the granting of even further rights to Aboriginals and their treaties, they also passed this proclamation a year later that made it necessary for Aboriginal leadership to be involved in any constitutional conference that might affect their rights. So that's the step the federal government would have to take. Back to the petition. We also would need provincial approval. The active encouragement of the provincial legislatures to do the same, or via provincial referenda, which would be our preference, and the calling of a federal provincial constitutional conference to finalize these changes desired by the people of Canada, including setting a date for the final termination of treaty and land claims submissions. End of petition.
Gerry wrote that petition and it was passed by the Clerk of Petitions in Ottawa.
Well, it was approved by him as legally and constitutionally valid, the
Yes.
wording and the clauses in it, which we needed to know before going any further.
And when we first got it going, we realized that Canadians mostly didn't know enough about the subject to even understand what it was all about and why they should sign it. So we've spent now 10 years, Gerry in particular, putting up posts galore at endracebasedlaw.com and endracebasedlaw.ca. The feature stories are on .com, and the everyday news stories, which are constantly in the news, are on .ca. And so now we feel it's time more for the petition, and we'd like to get Canadians involved. We're going to be doing live streams, and we're going to be actively taking action to get the petition signed. For now, if you're interested, you can download it and send it to endracebasedlawpetition@gmail.com. You got to sign it. But we're really looking for people all across Canada that can help us get something going. So that'll be future videos, and I'll be mostly heading that up, and that will be over on our End Race Based Law petition. We have Rumble, BitChute, Facebook, Twitter, that kind of thing. So the stories are on End Race Based Law, and the petition stuff will all be End Race Based Law petition, and I'll be mostly actively getting you guys involved. Gerry's our researcher. He's done enough.
And so we have introduced this on Canada Day because we believe it's one of several valid projects for us getting this country on track into the future.
And we really want to bring the Aboriginals with us. This is not end Natives, and this is not end Aboriginal
not at all.
culture. We're all from all around the world here in Canada, and we love you, Natives, and we want you to come with us. The sidekick to End Race-Based Law is unity for Canada, and we have to all come together and stop letting the United Nations. They're using the Natives to do this, to destroy Canada's sovereignty. They're just using them. They're not going to help the Natives. They're not going to give the Natives the land. They're not really going to get anything except the chiefs are going to get the money. So we would like to open this conversation up in all of your living rooms across Canada, and don't be afraid to have it, and don't be afraid to talk to your Aboriginal neighbors and say, look, we got to come together. We just have to. This is divide and conquer, and they want us to be divided, and we're not going to do it. All right, I think we're done.
Happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day. At least that's what today's recording date is. And happy every day in Canada. And let's come together. Unity for Canada. End race-based law.